the center of Beijing when a man walked to the middle of the avenue of eternal peace.
Well, all right. Welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast, Kevin and Chuck. All right. Today, it's government by emergency. I don't know if you guys saw, but this Governor Grisham in New Mexico, she basically took it upon herself to ban like open carry, concealed carry. Well, yeah, I mean, basically ban the Second Amendment, but it was more like, I mean, it was kind of limited. Like all the stories I see are like she outlawed guns. Well, she didn't like outlaw guns, but she made it. But again, that's the same stupid shit. You can't carry in public. So criminals are going to still carry. And people who follow the law are going to be like, oh, well, no, I'm not. But all the sheriffs and stuff were like, I'm not going to do it. But what should be
more? Not going to enforce it?
That's what they said. And it's already actually been like overturned now. Like the courts were like, yeah, look, you crazy lady, you can't fucking do that shit. But this is what she had to say. And this is why I'm concerned.
The Constitution is it unconstitutional to say you cannot exercise your carry license?
With one exception. And that is, if there's an emergency, and I've declared an emergency for a temporary amount of time, I can invoke additional powers. No constitutional right, in my view, including my oath, is intended to be absolute.
Right, so that's the point.
I heard that. I heard that shit. I heard that earlier this week, and it drove me crazy. No, my oath isn't absolute. Yeah, I swore an oath to uphold the Constitution, but that's not like real. It's not a real thing.
I tried to find video without stupid noise in the background, but you know how it is. You do what you can do. I'm on a limited budget. I'm not, I'm not the king of radio. All right, I'm working on it. I tried to find some good shit for you, but that's the thing. So these people are like, oh, well, it's an emergency. So now we have a history way back to the beginning of people overstepping. Oh, wait. First, I have to make a disclaimer here. If my power goes out or whatever, who knows? Like this may just drop out in the middle and you'll be like, what the hell? Where'd they go? It's over. and just, I'm sorry. So apparently there's Tropical Storm Ophelia. It is out doing its worst to do us in here. And it's funny because I had just got Starlink set up, and this is actually being broadcast through Starlink. And so it turns out there's like this thick layer of clouds over me. And I don't claim to know everything about how satellites work, but I did go to space camp. So, I mean, there is that.
So, right.
Bottom line, get it. Clouds could get in the way is the way I imagine it, right? I know I can't see the satellite with the clouds. So I imagine my Starlink antenna is having a problem connecting. Now,
so if we get disconnected, you can just tweet at Elon Musk, or it's X now, right? So they're called excretions.
Is that what it is?
Excrete at Elon Musk that Starlink isn't working and messed up your favorite podcast.
All right. And definitely note that it is your favorite podcast. That's key to the whole argument, right? That way it really has a, impact. But so it's funny because I checked it out, and when I first got it, Starlink was like, oh, look, I'd have between 175 meg and like 60 meg, like as the satellite kind of rotated over like a 2-minute period or something. But because I have so many trees, they're like, well, you have some obstructions. This is kind of, if you're watching it on the video, you can kind of check it out. There's a lot of tall pine trees around it, so that's not helping in their defense.
Yeah, you got to cut all that stuff down, man.
In the middle of a field, or buy a 150-foot pole or something. I don't know what I got to do, but I got to do something. But they're like, oh, it may randomly drop out. So they did warn me, mind you, after I gave them $700, they warned me.
Right.
Like I thought, oh, you can look up and there's no trees above you. Satellites are in the sky.
Satellite.
Like, what the fuck, right? So anyway, so I check it out today with the big storm, and I'm like, well, what's going on? What do I got? And dude, it was like 7 or 8 meg. And I'm like, oh God, that's gonna suck. And I'm like, all right, well, don't worry. I have the one that comes through the friggin' telephone wire that my old internet that I was using that averaged about
Right.
10 meg. That thing was like 3 meg download speed. And I'm like, oh, that's even worse. And I'm like, that's all right. I have the 5G phone with the hotspot. Let me check that. And that thing's like 3 meg download speed. And I'm like, come on. Today, as crappy as everything is, it's like Starlink is putting out the best effort of all three. So with that disclaimer out of the way, now I can get you refocused back on task. I know we don't even know what we're talking about anymore, but I'll bring you up to speed. So it's government by emergency, and it turns out we have a long history of government by emergency. And it actually, I would say, started out with the Boston Massacre. Right?
Right.
I know you're saying,
I mean, that's
Chuck,
pre-Constitution.
that wasn't really America. Right.
Yeah.
It wasn't really America, but wasn't it?
Mhm.
Wasn't it? I mean, you know, come on. I think you know where I'm going with this. All right.
In the 1770s, Boston was the most American place in the country.
There you go. And so the bottom line, though, it started out as martial law, and we're going to talk about it. It's kind of shifted into something different. And we're going to talk about why and how they do this power grab and how it gets there. You have questions, thoughts, things you want to add, make sure you're putting them in the comments. That way we can check it out here. Bottom line, as Chris pointed out, it's tyranny, right? And that's, we don't need any, you know, stuff like that. So anyway, let's jump into it. Kevin, martial law, you have some kind of history
Yeah,
here?
so I wanted to hit on it real quick. In 1976, National Emergency Act was implemented, which gives various legal requirements regarding emergencies declared by the President of the United States. Basically, the president can declare an emergency whenever he wants and do whatever the fuck he wants.
There you go.
Like, there's like 173 different things that he can declare an emergency for and do with that emergency. So it's basically whatever he wants to do if he decides there's an emergency, or she, I suppose.
Like in a movie, she. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, like in Make Believe America. Yeah.
Kevin, you're a horrible person.
All right, so the first time martial law was declared by Andrew Jackson. He was not a president, and he was just a general. So just if you're not real familiar with American history, bring you up to speed. Andrew Jackson was a war hero. He was an excellent general. Also a genocidal maniac.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. You said war hero. I was like, and a war criminal.
Yeah, both of those things.
You know.
Yeah. So during the War of 1812, large British force decided they were going to go up the Mississippi River, capture New Orleans, and
Battle of New Orleans, 1814.
Yeah. And Andrew Jackson showed up, declared martial law, and
that I'm doing
won the battle. And then he said he was just going to keep martial law until, when the war ends or something like that.
Or he feels like he wants to give up power.
Yeah.
As all good tyrants do.
Yeah, so that never really went away. And after a while, everyone's like, wait a minute, why are we still doing this? So a senator from Louisiana wrote an article saying that, it was basically illegal what Jackson was doing. So Jackson said, straight to prison. Perfect. So a district judge said, you either have to charge this senator with a crime or release him. So Jackson said, straight to prison. Judge went to jail too. Everybody goes to jail. So that's how that worked out.
That's kind of the big problem with government by emergency.
Yeah. So
that's what you end up with.
Yeah. Everyone just goes to prison. You got a problem with this? No, straight to jail. You can't do nothing about it. So basically, after 2 months, he finally returned the government back to the civilian government, the actual government, and he was fined $1,000 for doing this. He was extremely wealthy. He owned like all the slaves. If you're looking for somebody to blame the slave trade on, he's as good as anybody.
Yeah.
But later on, I think it was when he became president, he demanded that Congress refund him that $1,000 with interest, and they did. So basically, what they said was it wasn't against the law what you did, and apparently any general can just go into a city and declare martial law now because he set the precedent. Do whatever the fuck you want. You got a military, you got an army, you're the boss now.
Yeah. So it basically went from there to the Mormons in 1857. Now that was a whole big, we should probably do an episode on the whole
Mormons?
Mormon uprising. Well, no,
Yeah.
like the whole war with, they actually kind of won. Like the government was like screwing with them, and they raised up a Mormon army, and the government was like, let's just leave that alone. And they just left. Like for you to actually stand up to the government and win, you kind of got to be kind of tough. So they had something going back then. I'm not sure they have that going now, but then later, 1861, Lincoln, Civil War. And that seems legitimate, right? He was like, look, I can question and round up spies. And he also didn't like get completely crazy of, hey, I can do whatever I want and come in your house and steal your food.
Right. He
and,
did,
you know, like
he
we
did
do
suspend
now, right?
habeas corpus. So, you know, it's not innocent till proven guilty. You don't have to be charged with something to be arrested. That was basically what happened there. And I mean, if there's a war in the United States, then it would be reasonable that the military would be in charge, but not most people didn't think that. You know, the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence, one of the big things in there was taking over civilian governments with the military. That was one of the problems they had with King George. So it was kind of an issue, you know what I mean? People weren't in love with that idea. And honestly, that's one of the reasons that John Wilkes Booth shot him in the head. You know, it was, I mean, there were other issues there, but that was one of the main things, was that he was saying that Lincoln was a tyrant, not a president, wasn't rightfully elected, and was ruling with an iron fist.
Iron fist. But yeah, there was this whole Jefferson Davis thing, something about that not a single Southern state voted for Lincoln and they didn't feel represented. That's where you get that whole not, you know, duly elected thing, whatever. Moving right along. So 1917, striking miners during World War I. They were kind of like, look, we can't not have power. Well, we're fighting a war, and it just, it made it a mess. So again, I'm not sure I would have been down for that.
Generally speaking,
shady.
Generally speaking, the best way to take care of your union problem is to kill all the union members. Sometimes it works out. I don't know if they're going to start killing the actors and the writers that are on strike right now. Kill all the auto workers. I don't know. But I mean, generally, if you want to end a strike, you just shoot all of them.
Yeah,
so
that also works, you know, right? Because people tend to do it again. If you shoot the last guys, the new guys are like, like that's, you know, this mystery company that I work for. I know they tell us, they're like, oh, if you guys ever unionize here, we'll just close the plant. You can all go to hell, you know, like whatever. We don't care. Yeah. And that is kind of their attitude. Like they've proven over and over that that's the MO there, you know, like,
right.
You come in and you're like, hey, they're paying $10 an hour more up the street. Good, go. You're fired.
Yeah.
You know,
bye.
It's like there's no, oh, you're valuable. Oh, we care. No.
Yeah.
But anyway, so then Pearl Harbor. Turns out we wanted to round up a bunch of people.
Yep. I remember hearing about that.
And put them in camps. So they were like, it's a good time. Let's just do that. All right. Organized crime in Alabama. Now, that was 1918, and that was kind of the governor, and he did National Guard to help clean up organized crime. So there was this Phoenix City that they said was the wickedest city in America.
And that's Alabama?
And that was in Alabama, I believe. And they basically had a guy running for attorney general, and he was like, hey, I'm going to clean this up. So they just went and assassinated him. And the government was like, all right, maybe we should help out and kind of, you know, slow that down. So that was kind of the end of martial law. And I don't think we'll ever technically see it again. Maybe like from governors. Now you're like, Chuck, what do you mean? The government's going to have lots of power grabs. Yes, I agree with you, but let's talk about it. So here's the thing. Martial law is when you want to kind of bring in the military and enforce
Right.
stuff.
So yeah, it's specifically the military running the government or in charge of
Right.
keeping the peace, right?
Hence the whole martial thing. Right.
Right.
But here's the problem. It turns out the government was like, I don't know if this was the conversation in the room, but this is definitely the end result. They were like, hey, 9/11, everything's scary. Let's do the Patriot Act. And when they did the Patriot Act, we created the Department of Homeland Security. And they said, what we'll do is we'll employ enough people that it's like an army, and we'll end up give them all the weapons, all the training, and all the authority to do whatever the hell they want. And then we won't have to use the military because we'll be like, yeah, they're like police. Don't even worry about it. And
Homeland Security is
pretty much. So now you have Homeland Security. We don't need martial law. We got
Homeland Security is
and it
probably
goes
the
great.
scariest organization in the United States. It used to be the CIA and the NSA, but not anymore.
Yeah. No, and that's kind of so. Again, once again, my point of government by emergency, that's the Patriot Act, right? The Patriot Act ended up, coming in, and the government just took all of the powers that they want. Now, and of course, it was the evil Republicans that brought us the Patriot Act, the ones who say they stand for freedom. But then the Democrats were like, this is ridiculous. We can't have this. And then when they were in power, it was about to expire. And they were like, well,
yeah, we better sign that
better
shit
do
back
it.
up.
Just, because terrorists and freedom. And we just need it. And then, so they renewed it. And it actually got renewed a bunch of times. And everybody kept getting hammered when they voted for it, both Democrats and Republican. And I think after renewing it 5 times, I think it has officially expired. But here's the beauty. They had already put everything in place. And they were like, yeah, even though it's technically illegal for us to keep spying on people, let's just do it anyway.
Right.
And so there was a lot of really shady stuff that they worked out too. So the NSA, one of the Patriot Act things was like, hey, we can record and save every phone call and all the information. But then what we're going to do is we'll just use it when we want it. Well, when the Patriot Act went away, they were like, yeah, you really kind of can't do that anymore. So then they were like, wait a minute. How about we make AT&T and Verizon and Comcast and everybody else record and save everything, and we won't have it. But then as soon as we want, we'll call them up and we'll be like, hey, can you guys give us that?
So they'll do it for us.
Totally good. And that's basically what they did. Now, technically, it's voluntary. However, all the companies that I just mentioned do it anyway. It's voluntary. But if you give the government everybody's personal business, which they don't have anything to lose, right? If you give everybody's business to the government, then the beauty is the government is going to share everything they collect and get from the other people back with you. It goes into a big pool.
And everybody can take a dip.
And everybody can take a dip. And that way you can target for advertising or find out where the deadbeat bill payer is, or, I don't know what their logic is, what they gain out of it, but they seem to like it. 2018, we had the CISA Act, which CISA, and it's Cyber Information, some word that I can't read after I wrote.
Your own spelling, huh?
Something Act, Cyber Information, something with
Security
an S.
Act.
Yeah, security. That sounds right. Yep, nailed it. First try. And that's with the companies volunteering to share. And like I said, AT&T. They also had the USA Freedom Act. Now they call that a backronym. So what it is, you're thinking acronym. I know that one. That's when you make the word all mean something, but this is where you kind of do it backwards, where you take the word first and then you kind of fit
and then fill it in
into so here's what we got. it's the U.S. Freedom Act. So you have uniting, strengthening, fulfilling rights, ending eavesdropping. No, I don't know if that's like rights ending or if it's
Right.
rights and
And
then ending
eavesdropping.
eavesdropping.
Yeah, yeah.
I like to think that it's right ending, but you know, whatever. But it's funny because it goes ending eavesdropping and then dragnet collection right after that. And you're like, wait, we're ending eavesdropping, but then so I think they must mean right ending. And
Yeah.
people are like freedom. Yeah, that's what that
Yeah.
sounds like. And then
Freedom
so it's
ending.
right. So D and then online monitoring act. And I'm like, oh
That
yeah,
sounds like
see what they did.
really a stretch, man, to make that any kind of real thing, man. That U.S. Freedom Act, huh?
Yeah,
That's
freedom.
that all
Now,
sounds preposterous. That sounds like some shit that your school made up, that your second grade teacher made up on the spot. And yeah, that's it. It's good.
yeah. Now somebody, Chris actually just pointed out, that Liberty Safe. I mean, that really fit with the whole corporations and being down for, helping out the government for apparently no reason. Now it's funny because like I kind of was like, I thought that Apple kind of did a reasonable amount of, blowback with the government of we don't really want to help you break into somebody's phone. And
Right.
I thought it was reasonable. I don't expect my cell phone to really be all that secure. I hate to say it. I mean, you shouldn't trust that. But if you're a freaking safe company, are you kidding me? Like, you're like, hey, we'll give you this big, super secure safe, and they're so secure. Look at us drop it off buildings and burn down houses around it, and it all worked out. And then they're like, yeah, but I mean, like if somebody asked for the combination, we'll like give it to them. I mean, there's that.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait. And the thing is, they're like, well, it's the government. And I'm like, yeah, but that's who I bought the safe to keep out.
Yeah.
Like,
But
I'm more
Chuck,
afraid
didn't
of
you
the
read the
government.
word liberty safes?
Oh,
It seems like anytime they use the words like liberty or freedom or patriot, it means like the opposite of that shit.
yeah.
The Freedom Act, the Patriot Act, all that shit is the opposite of what it actually means.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's insane. But that's the thing is, and then you're gonna turn on me like that, and I can't get behind that. I mean, I thought they were impressive. They were. It's funny. I'd keep seeing them on sale, and I'd be like, "Oh, I'd do that one," But then I'm like, I'm not. Their regular full prices are pretty intense, and I'm pretty cheap. Like you probably didn't know that about me, but I'm pretty cheap. You could ask my wife; she'll tell you. But that's the thing. So the just a safe company giving your information to the government is insane. Like that's the most likely person to come and take my guns, like a criminal out on the street, the ATF, the local sheriff, whatever. Actually, my local sheriff's pretty cool, but the sheriff in the next county, he definitely wants to come take my guns. So, it's whatever. My Democratic governor, these different things, these people want to get my guns. And if you're going to call yourself Liberty Safe and you're going to want to look like, if you're just going to be a safe company, dude, they had to have tanked themselves. I don't see them recovering from this. Like, you just got to kind of close up shop and
rename that shit.
Start over. Yeah.
Change it to freedom safes and do the same shit.
I may as well get made in China safe because whatever, whatever. All right. So no longer eavesdropping, openly collecting data. Yeah, that's it. It's fair. It's like the war on drugs where we smuggle the drugs. Yeah, that's what Uncle Whiskey had to throw in there. It's,
Yeah, same thing. War on terror.
Or, hey, when we went after the guns, and so we started opening the borders and forcing, dude, I was listening to some of that. They actually, right? So again, it was government overreach. There's an emergency. So we have to make this gun running program where we let the guns go so we can track down the cartels. So they had it was a guy actually I saw on like Glenn Beck or something. He was a former ATF guy. And he's like, yeah, I was with that whole Fast and Furious thing. And, he goes, they they had us certain gun stores where we specifically told them, even though they wouldn't have sold the guns to the people, that go ahead and do it because we want to see where those guns go. And they kept checking in saying, hey, this is wrong. We're not comfortable with this. No, you have to do it. Let the guns go. And, you know, we want to trace them. Guys like, all right, no problem. Then no shit. After they were like, hey, this guy, most of the guns came from this one gun store. And they actually like arrested the guy and shut him down.
Classic.
Like,
Classic
and the
shit.
guy's like, he's like, I went to my supervisor and I'm like, no, I have all this evidence. Like, we told the guy to do it. No, that's just let it go. He's a criminal.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, this is the problem. That's the thing. Like, I keep hearing, well, we need the government because they do some good. And like, we wouldn't have like, oh, I heard the argument from a guy the other day. He's like, well, you know, there would be poisonous food getting out. It'd all be botulism and bad and whatever. And I'm like, so we need the government looking out for it so we don't get things like all the other countries ban like high fructose corn syrup that's really bad for us, and all the other things that, wait, the government's actually paying and promoting.
Did you know that there's no regulation on butane in your food? Like the cooking spray and shit, that's full of butane. You just spray that shit all over your pan, you're good.
It's, you know, people are like, well, they do so much good. And I'm like, they really don't.
They don't.
So check this out. Let me upset
make things
you.
Expensive.
Let me upset you a little bit more. And here's just like, you need to be informed. There is a freaking, you can Google this. And it turns out you can read it on Congress's website. The CIA had a whistleblower come forward. Now, again, just because somebody says it's true doesn't mean that it is. Like, I mean, we have these guys with the aliens. I don't really know, but that's another, I might touch on that in a minute. But either way, there was a whistleblower who came in and he said, look, the committee who investigated where the coronavirus came from and that told America emphatically that absolutely it did not come from a lab in China. Right? They were like, nope, it didn't. We investigated it. It didn't happen.
Yeah, not from
so
that
there
lab.
were 7 investigators. 6 of them were bribed by the CIA, according to the whistleblower.
Now,
to say that.
Right.
Now, first of all, government officials on a like investigation committee, are that easy to bribe that you can get 6 out of 7?
Turns out. And, you know, I'll be honest with you. When I see people that get bribed and to do like nasty shit, they don't even get that much money.
Now
there's
20 grand. 20
yeah,
grand.
there was exactly.
Whatever.
Not a big deal. Not a big deal.
Yeah, I
There's
don't know
a FBI agent that was arrested for leaking secrets to, I think it was to Russia a couple of years back. And they gave him like $160,000 worth of diamonds. Like 160,000. That's enough to like trade out your country and, you know, betray everybody, you know.
Yeah,
not that much. That senator just got indicted for I think it was a Democratic senator from New Jersey. Just a couple of days ago got indicted for well, he was taking bribes and they found $450,000 worth of cash in his house, like hidden under his fucking underwears in his underwear drawer and shit. Like, I mean, all right, that's a legitimate amount of money, you know, but also, fuck you, dude. You know what I mean? Fuck you.
Who is the one with it in the foil in the freezer?
Oh, yeah. Who was that?
Way back. He was a
Jesse Jackson's son, right?
Oh, no. Yeah, then that's a different one. But
another one with foil in the freezer.
I used to go to customers' houses when I do like the fridge repair. And there'd be like the foil wrap money in the freezer. It'd be like all the old timers. And this would be like, you know, like probably $500 or, you know, I don't know.
Right. It wasn't, it wasn't big
it wasn't stacks, you know, big bricks, but they'd be all embarrassed that, oh, that's, don't worry about that. And I'm like, I know what that is. We don't even, you're good. Yeah.
Don't worry about it, buddy.
It happens. You know, you gotta take the bribes where you can get them. Right. But yeah, all along. So the bottom line though, the government just is like, hey, you know, it's really important. They said actually, as far as the the COVID thing that Fauci, he did not say that Fauci knew about the people being bribed, but they said that, or I guess it's Fauci, that Fauci did know that it came from the
CIA.
the secret lab.
Oh, from the lab.
From the lab. And they were like, but he just was like, well,
But
whatever.
he wasn't. He didn't have anything to do with gain of function research. That's what he said until they proved the opposite of that.
Right.
But
And
that's what they said.
Remember, Tucker Carlson came out, and in the very beginning, they knew that the vaccine really wasn't that effective. They knew that masks weren't that effective. And there's emails back and forth saying that. Like, it's not like they saw a report. It's like, hey, we know it's not effective, but we need to do something. Because, you have to do something, Kevin. It's really important that you do something.
Yeah, I got the jab, and then I got COVID afterwards.
And then you get COVID. It's like, get out of here. So COVID, giant emergency. Hey, shut down the country. We need to, make sure that
it's an emergency.
It's an emergency. And basically they did force, a lot of schools. They were completely, hey, your kids can't come to school unless, or whatever, or they shut down, completely. New York became a straight tyrant state after COVID. I don't know. How are you guys now with the new COVID coming here?
Nobody really gives a shit anymore.
Nobody cares.
Yeah, they got tired of that shit. I mean, they did. I mean, New York was like seriously a police state for a good solid 6 months.
They did force all those restaurants closed,
everything closed. Yeah, schools were closed. The only thing that was open was like emergency stuff, which is gas stations, grocery stores, and liquor stores. Well, there you go. That's the emergency shit.
Essential liquor store, right? No, but that's the thing too. Remember,
and all the essential workers were people that make minimum wage. Anybody that was making like $70,000-$80,000 a year, not essential. But that kid that bags your groceries,
essential.
Yeah, fuck that kid. I hope he dies from COVID.
Whatever. Coughing on you, whatever. They don't care. But I don't know, dude. It was brutal. And I mean, New York was insane. Where we send ambulances out. Somebody's dying of a heart, whatever. Nope, ignore them.
Yeah.
They can't help them. We can't do those. They're COVID deaths, and I mean, it was insane. So that's my worry, though, is they basically write these loopholes in where they can do whatever they feel they need to do, and just, hey, we're going to take power because it's an emergency. So how do you prepare for something like that? Well, basically, it's really important that you learn to carry yourself, right? So first, they shut down all the stores. They shut down your travel, right, with COVID early on. The Boston Marathon. Remember how they, shut down Boston. Nobody's going anywhere. Lockdown. Yep. They're pointing guns if you look out your window. So how could you put yourself in a better position? Well, you need to make sure that you have some food supply I'm talking about your minimum of 2 weeks or something that a lot of people have that mindset of, well, I just have to outlast my neighbors, right? Because they're not going to like have us all rotting and dying in our house. Right. But I don't want to, I don't want to be the first ones to go. Right.
Right.
So that mindset, having like 2 weeks of food and water in your house already puts you further than everybody else.
Yeah. Way ahead of everybody else.
But let's think about even more long-term, like COVID. We couldn't get paper towels. We couldn't get toilet paper. We couldn't get a lot of basic medicine. You couldn't get hand sanitizer. You couldn't get cold and flu stuff at first. There was like all
soap
kinds
was
of
hard
weird,
to come by too.
Soap,
yep.
Any of that stuff was like really tough. And that lasted a long time. It was more than 2 weeks that you ended up, needing to supply your own stuff. And by being a prepper, you need to actually plan ahead a little bit. I mean, it's kind of what we do, right? That's the difference. That's where, you separate yourself by having the supplies that you can carry on. And the same thing, I mean, you could look at it other ways like, hey, maybe they're going to make it that I can't buy handguns. Maybe they're going to make it that, AR-15s are illegal. If that's something that you feel is important to your family's safety, maybe these are things that you get while you can, right? some people would have even made the argument that doing the 80% ones where everybody didn't know about it would have maybe been something nice that, hey, maybe it's not on a list to be taken away from you.
Yeah.
Some people might make that argument. I'm just saying, like in a movie or something.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, like something
Yeah,
like
like
that.
we don't
yeah.
know those people. I just,
Mhm.
I've heard stories. Buying ammo, right? Having enough ammo in your house to last would maybe be a prepper thing. But also it's simpler things. It's keeping your fuel tanks reasonably full, having
Mhm.
gas for your generator. I have a diesel tractor, and I keep like 4 or 5 gallon cans of diesel because one, diesel stores, and I only
Right.
used about like 5 gallons a year, so it's kind of
Mhm.
like
You
so
want
a
to make
tractor,
sure it stores. Yeah.
you just a tractor freaking just goes and goes on diesel. Like I'll go.
Yeah.
It's funny if like I'm tilling or something, it kind of burns through. But
Right.
I got to say, it really you
All the
can do
other
a lot of
basics.
moving, basic
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, just having pallet forks or whatever. People don't think, but like if you had a 55-gallon drum and maybe gas was cheap, and in some states you could maybe fill it with gas in that 55-gallon drum. So you put
Mhm.
that thing on a pallet, you can lift it up in the air and it'll gravity feed down if you had a nozzle worked in there
Right.
into something. Maybe you do that kind of thing with water. Maybe you have a little hill or a little pallet lift that you put, your stuff on. I'm just
Mhm.
saying hypothetically, right? But the point is having cash, right? Perhaps the day could come where we go to a digital currency. I know people are talking about that, and people might not be able to have cash on hand. We had this stupid coin shortage thing they tried out. Like, I don't even know what the hell that was about or what
Yeah.
they're doing. I still see people are like, "Oh my god, you have cash. What are we gonna do?" And I'm like, "Get out of here." So,
Mhm.
I mean, there is a slim chance that having a lot of cash on hand could backfire on you. But I feel like if you had like 2 grand, you'd be able to get rid of that. I don't see a scenario where it's really going to backfire on you where you can't unload your 2 grand or put it back in the bank.
Yeah.
Now, if you had
Yeah.
450,000 in your freezer, that
See, yeah,
makes it
that's a little bit harder to
right to
to
work back
hide.
in.
You
Yeah,
know.
that's
Yeah, 2 grand and $100 bills. That's not that much.
you can get rid
You
of that.
can. Yeah,
That's
you
not
can
a
stick that in an envelope under in your incoming mailbox. I got a little mailbox in my house where I put all the bills and shit that I don't want to look at. You just stick it in there with the cash. But I mean, you can hide that kind of money easy. When you get into that 450,000, though, they said they were finding it everywhere. dirty clothes hampers, bathroom underneath the sink, all sorts of shit. You got to hide that all over you got to spread that around a little bit. That 450.
right.
But
Now, Slow Burn put in the comments about how, DOD and everybody was like, "Oh, you're an essential worker. You have to go to work." He actually put, or he would be picked up and taken to work and housed. So that doesn't sound good. But that's the thing. That's that
being
whole
housed by the government
emergency.
doesn't sound good at all.
I lived in some government housing when I was in the Navy.
Hmm.
It's not the A1 communications or accommodations. Sorry, wrong
Yeah.
word there. That you might expect.
Yeah, we were
Just
talking
keep that
about
in mind.
the Japanese earlier.
Yeah.
In the they weren't
Internment camp.
concentration camps, internment camps. That's government housing too.
This government housing. We're
Yeah.
looking for you. We're just afraid that you're picking up and sharing secrets. We're looking out for you. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's one of those things, man, that you can't trust these motherfuckers one bit.
yeah.
Don't trust those motherfuckers at all.
Yeah, no, I definitely had an essential worker letter in my car that I was supposed to carry around because they were like, "We're afraid they're going to restrict traffic." And that's the thing. I mean, they were talking about making it that nobody could leave their house. Just the fact that they thought that that was on the table
Yeah.
should concern you. All
Mhm.
right. That's why
Those
I'm
are the days, though. I really missed that when everything was locked
and
down. I
Jeff
still had to go to
Christine
work, and there was
and
no traffic. I wasn't yelling out the window at people. I wasn't honking the horn and riding people's asses.
every other
It was
month you
great.
just got 2 grand in the bank account or 6
Yep.
grand that you didn't know
Yeah.
about. You're like, "Hey, it's whatever,
Uh-huh. Yeah, I was
whatever."
still working, so I got all that extra cash that just went to cocaine and hookers.
Right. Who hasn't seen that?
Yep.
Kevin, it's a sad day for America. But no,
What are you
that's
gonna
my
do?
point, though. So that is a big reason of why we need to prepare. And the government is happy to take away your rights at any moment when the emergency comes. Like I said, I don't expect it'll be martial law, but if you go around New York City and you see the guys out in the streets with the M16s and whatever on the street corner, M4A1s, whatever you want to, whatever they are now, right?
Mhm.
But that's the thing, you'll see it out there, but work with us. All right. I'm just saying, maybe step up your prepping game, maybe start to take care of your own needs. That's really where that farming, learning to, grow your own food. And that's all right. Not everybody is in an area where you can grow your own food, but that's when you need to start stockpiling.
Mhm.
Make sure you have a plan for water. And to be honest, make sure you have a plan for heat and energy. If you have some kind of solar thing. Now, maybe you're the guy who's totally cool with no electricity, and you might be, and that's okay. But make sure you have a plan in place that you're going to be able to carry on and not be dependent. I think it's so much more a possibility that we're going to be in a place where inflation's out of control, where it's just hard to get to work, hard to keep a job, hard to, take care of your family, than, the actual SHTF apocalypse, zombies,
Right.
neighbors
Right.
coming, whatever. But I think that your neighbors wanting to steal from you because they don't have money or food for their family. I think that hard to keep a job, hard to get a decent paycheck or a paycheck that will actually buy stuff at the store. I mean, we're
Mhm.
all seeing ridiculous inflation right now, as much as they're telling us
Right.
it's getting better. Every time I go to the store, it's more than, it was the time before.
Right.
And it's getting insane. And these are
Mhm.
things that we can actually prepare for as preppers, and even if you're like, well, now it's all super expensive. Well, to be honest, dude, it's going to keep getting more
Yeah, it's
expensive.
gonna be more super expensive.
And that's the problem. People are like, oh, I don't want to buy now. Everything's high. It's going to kind of keep going.
Mhm.
I do think real estate might take a turn as interest rates go up, where it goes down a little bit. Maybe buying housing isn't the trick, but the rest of it, hey, look for ways. And maybe if you don't have money, usually if people aren't making money, they have time. And if you have time, you can do the research and find alternative ways to take care of yourself. Or maybe you can help other people who can make some money and take some, assist them by giving them more time, by cutting their lawn or doing whatever it is you do, I don't know. But yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. I think that's definitely a good way to prepare yourself is working on your skills, like slow burning Uncle Whiskey you're talking about, having backup tools, having your equipment set up, have an extra chain for your chainsaw, have an extra handle for your axe. All that stuff is good stuff to have on hand,
I'm
and buy
getting
it now because it's getting more expensive every week.
guys, I'm getting closer to the sawmill. So yeah, no, I'm with you. And
Hmm.
hey, maybe you start raising those rabbits, right? I got them going on, got my baby bunnies.
Yeah,
Another couple weeks, they might make it to freezer camp. I mean, everyone's
yeah,
excited.
yeah,
So
yep.
I'm just saying that might be a thing. I got it.
Hmm.
Turns out I had a few more boys than I thought I did. So
Oh yeah, you
there
gotta
might be a lot of freezer camp.
yeah, you gotta
Hey,
ditch them.
so anyway, things are getting brutal out there. I think we're gonna have a quick after show after this, but I appreciate you guys listening, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Comments on wherever you download the podcast, we appreciate it. If you wanted, you could support us on Patreon at patreon.com/preppingbadass. Over there, you sign up. We have a bunch of different levels. $10 a month actually gets you a I believe a cool coffee mug, kind of like the one that I'm drinking out of right now, except you can't see it. Looks something like that,
Something
but
like
I can't.
that.
I am totally
Nice.
not coordinated. But anyway,
Yeah.
they also have a t-shirt all kinds of different stuff. Actually, if you wanted to get some badass gear but weren't really down for the Patreon commitment, you might want to check out preppingbadass.com. There's a link for badass gear. We also have an email list you can sign up there. I don't really send out a lot of emails, but
you can email us at preppingbadass
at gmail.com.
At
right.
gmail.com.
But most people actually look for an email list where they don't get any emails. So in a way, it's
the best kind. It's the best kind of email list.
That's the best. That's one of my favorite kinds, right? I mean, unless you have something cool, but I don't know. That's it. I keep waiting for something awesome. But I also figure when they shut us down and boot us off YouTube, then you're going to be like, oh, I got that email. Now I know to go to Odyssey or wherever else it is that, people are doing these days. So keep that in mind. But with that, stay safe, and we will talk to you guys next week.